Hey, real quick, before we dive into today's episode, if you've been feeling like your brand needs a little love, but you're not quite sure where to start, I have just the tool you need. The Standout Brand Audit Bot is an AI-powered guided audit that shows you exactly what's working, what's not, and how to strengthen your brand using my proven Standout brand system. In 10 minutes or less, you'll walk away with clear next steps to move your brand forward with purpose. It's completely free. Just head to the show notes to grab the link and get started. Today's episode is a little different and a lot of fun because I am joined by Lindsay Dollinger for a true podcast swap conversation. So she is sharing this episode on her podcast and I am sharing it on mine. Lindsay is a business coach, travelpreneur, full-time teacher, and fellow podcaster on this. And we're chatting all about what entrepreneurship really looks like in the busy seasons of life. From websites and branding to lead generation and burnout, this episode is your chance to sit in on a conversation between two business owners figuring out in real time. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of two, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to a super fun podcast. Today we are doing a very different style episode. I know I've done like one or two styles like this on my show before, Morgan. I'm not sure if you have, but we're going to just show you behind the scenes. We're going to have an awesome conversation about what's working in our businesses, about branding and lead gen, and we're going to be playing this episode on both of our shows. So, Morgan, you want to start us off and tell more so my listeners than your listeners, who you are, your podcast, what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. It's like a true podcast swap, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
So I'm Morgan Specht. I'm the founder of Specht & Co. Creative Studio. We are a strategy, brand design, and website design agency that supports online service-based businesses in building a really strong strategy-backed brand that is going to actually move them towards their goals versus just look nice but not really do anything for them. I'm also the host of the Six Figure Brand Podcast. I have a membership. I'm a of two and a military spouse. So I've got a lot going on, which is why we're doing this swap. So
yes, yeah, I love it. A lot going on, but like a lot going on different from my a lot going on, which is always really fun to see, like compare stories. Like, okay, how are you doing things in your productivity and all of that? So I'm excited to dive into that today.
Yeah, totally. So before we dive in, why don't you, Lindsay, introduce my audience?
Yeah. So I am Lindsay Dollinger. I am in Ohio. And I have been a travelpreneur and a women's business coach since 2019. So I first started in network marketing and then transitioned into business coaching women. And then I niched down even further because I also became a travel agent myself in 2019 to really helping women grow their travel businesses. However, a lot of my clients are full-time teachers and have a side hustle and they're trying to leave that or not even necessarily leave the classroom or leave a full-time job always, but just supplement their income and have something, that's their own that they have. And then my podcast is the Passports, Profits, and Pixie Dust podcast. It's had a couple different name changes over the years, but that's the latest rendition of it. And I love talking to women entrepreneurs and really picking their brain and sharing that with my audience. So this is going to be really, really fun.
Yeah. And you glossed over the fact that you also are a full-time teacher.
I am a full-time teacher. Yes, I am still...
I think a lot of my listeners have recently left their 9-to-5s or they're trying to leave their 9-to-5. So I'm excited to get some perspective from somebody who is still kind of and is like not necessarily chomping at the bit to leave.
Yeah. All right, let's dive in. I'm curious, since we're now talking about the 9-to-5, what does your business look like through the week? Like, how do you have your schedule structured so that it like really works for you?
So that has changed a lot in different seasons of my life. So I started my business as a side hustle that for about a year and a half, went full time. And then I worked like 40, 50, 60 hours a week because I was excited to build my business and I didn't have kids and I could. It was great.
Why not? Right.
And then in 2023, my daughter was born and we had to shift things around again. So today I have 2 kids. My oldest is in daycare preschool for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. So that's kind of my work window. So I take her to school, come home, feed my 1-year-old, put him down for a nap, and then I get to work. So I get really like maybe 3 hours of like focused work a day if I'm really lucky. So I have a lot of support. I have a studio manager who does all of like the admin, invoicing, onboarding, everything for my clients. And then I have a graphic designer who does really a bulk of the like hands-on design work for us right now. So I am really responsible for brand strategy and like creative direction. So like the more big picture stuff. And then obviously marketing the business and doing things like podcasting and emailing my list and posting on social media and all the things that really need to be me. So that's kind of how that looks from like a high level perspective. But I am not organized enough to be able to say like Mondays I do lead gen and Tuesdays I create content and Wednesdays I'm doing client work. Like it's just every week changes. We're just doing the best we can.
Yeah. But I think that's okay too, because I don't think everyone, everyone's style and everyone's brain doesn't work that way. I used to teach that to my clients and then I was getting the feedback like, as nice as that sounds, like I'm just not able to do that. And, I also have those seasons where I'm like, okay, we're not doing anything in this realm right now. Like it is not, a priority. And I think that takes a very aware business owner to know that that's okay to do too. So I definitely think that's totally fine.
Yeah. And I think for me, just like a big part of my story lately, like the last maybe 2 years, has been about just like learning to trust myself a little more and like discerning what I actually need in life or in business. And so if I were to try to put myself in a box like that, where I'm like, Tuesdays, post on Instagram, like maybe that's not what I'm feeling on Tuesday. And I want to put my energy somewhere else. And if I were to force it, like, I'd be checking the box of showing up on social. But like, is that really doing anything for me? Probably not.
Right. So curious then, how do you do your content? Is it more like when I'm feeling motivated, like do you sit down and plan any of it out?
Yes. So I plan like, for example, right now I'm publishing 2 podcast episodes a week on Monday and Thursday. So I know on Monday and Thursday, I'm going to do like an audiogram on Instagram. Yeah. That takes care of 2 days. And I know I do 1 portfolio post a week. And then I try to do 2 other somethings. Sometimes that's a promotion for like a training that I'm giving. Sometimes it's just like a tips and tricks type of post. So I have like loose parameters and I will try to create and schedule everything like this week for next week if I can. But that doesn't always happen. This morning I was like, crap, I got to get a reel together because I published a podcast episode last night and nobody's going to know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do the same thing. It's like I almost, especially with like podcasts, like I get to a point where I have so many batched out and I'm feeling really good about myself. And then all of a sudden it's like, I have 1 left and I'm like, okay, time to record, time to make some social media posts, all that.
Yep. It goes quick. So I would love to hear conversely how you kind of manage your time with having a 9 to 5.
Yeah. So kind of like we already mentioned, I definitely am aware of different seasons. So obviously summer is off for me is a time where I have a lot more time where I can pour into my business. However, on the flip side, I travel a lot more in the summer too. So it's like, I really I like a nice 12-month overall plan. So, I'm going to launch offers at this time of year. And these are kind of, an activation event, for example, that I'm going to host to get more leads in to hopefully get them into an offer. I like to do an overall plan for that for the year. Again, it changes though. So I'm very much if I'm not feeling it or I'm not excited about it, then I'm going to like scratch it. I'm not going to just do it to be doing it kind of deal. So I do a very overall plan and then I divide that into a quarter and then into a month. And then as far as dividing it into the week, deciding what actually has to get done, sort of around what you were saying. Mondays, I have a podcast come out. I also do an email on Mondays. I was doing email on Thursday and Friday. Friday was a free resource that I was sharing, whether it was one of my own or something else that I was promoting. Thursdays was like a throwback Thursday because I have so much content at this point in time. I'm like, it's silly not to be, driving especially new people to it who haven't seen it. So I'd like to get back into the pattern of scheduling that out. I do have a VA. I actually have a Pinterest VA, and then I have another VA who just got started like 2 weeks ago at this point, now that we're recording this. And she's actually taking a lot off the plate of who is now my Pinterest VA. My Pinterest VA was doing a lot more, but her life circumstance shifted. So she doesn't have as much time to do that. So I'm in the transitioning phase of getting, that help to do some things for me. But what she does is she schedules out my content. So I have a spreadsheet that I sit down and I write out posts. But I'm also very much like you, where if I'm not feeling it, like if I'm not feeling motivated, then I don't sit down and write it. So I almost like wait for that week where I'm feeling like very creative and a lot of ideas. And then I will sit down and write out a whole bunch of posts. And then I pass that along for her to schedule. And so I'm doing a lot of batching and behind the scenes work. And I batch that time together. Like one evening, I will sit and do it for like 2 or 3 hours. And then another evening, like Tuesdays, is usually my podcast recording nights. Friday, I've always thought of like Fridays, follow up Friday. So, I have systems in place to help me do that. But I really like to sit down like on a Sunday morning and plan out my week and fit in my business in the pockets that it can, because I don't want to get burnt out. I don't want to put myself in that position where I don't love it anymore. So as much as I love a good schedule and I love a good plan, I also am at the point where I'm like, I'm allowing myself to take a breather or take some time off if I need it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such a good lesson for any of us who are like juggling multiple jobs or working and being a primary parent or any of those things, that like pretty much your business will always be there. But if you burn yourself out, it takes so long to like get that spark back, that it's so much easier to just be like, hey, I have things I was supposed to do on this Friday evening, but I'm going to take a bubble bath or go out with my friends or do something else, and I can catch up tomorrow. And having kids has really broke me of this, which is great. But I'm a very like, gotta follow the system person. And so that was really hard for me to adjust to, of like, I didn't get as much done as I wanted to today, but I at least made sure to get done like the really important things that move the needle, and everything else will get done when it gets done.
Yeah. And I like to like picking those 2 or 3 things. I'm like, okay, these have to get done today. And then everything else is just kind of like, I had a former coach who was like, it's the sprinkles on top. I'm like, it's the sprinkles on top. If I get other stuff done, great. But if I don't, that's totally fine too. Go on.
Oh, I was going to say, especially too, like I really overworked myself. I was side hustling, but I knew that was like short term, right? I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to work in like every spare second that I have. And my poor fiance, now husband, is just going to have to like suffer through with me for like a year and a half. And then I will quit my 9 to 5 and like I'll be done and it'll be all worth it. You're in a different position, I think, where you're like, no, this is how things are going to be for the foreseeable future. So I think in that case, it's even more important to like pace yourself a little bit.
That's such a good point. Absolutely. Yes. And I still have to pull the reins back a little bit because I don't have kids. So it can be really easy for me to be the workaholic and to sit down and, go until way too late at night. But I'm like, I know I'm not a nice person if I don't get enough sleep. And then I start to get sick all the time and different. And I'm like, it's not worth it to me to have an awesome business if like I don't feel good in it or about it. And then another thing, and something that you said triggered me thinking of this when you said it's not fun. That's also where I shifted my branding a few years ago to include a lot more of like the fun Disney side of me and of my interests with like my brand name. And I always held a retreat for women entrepreneurs in Northern Kentucky. And it was awesome. It was a beautiful house. I still love having it there. But then I started doing them at Disney World instead. And it's like the magical business. So it's something that, yes, it's work, but I'm able to have this really fun branding, but, and have fun doing the things that I love to be doing. And that has made a huge difference for me too in not burning out and being able to show up on those days where I'm like, okay, this is like crazy. The amount of stuff that I have to do right now is crazy, but at least it's all fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I say all the time, I feel like there is a little bit of a misconception from people who do not run their own businesses, who are like in like just 9 to 5s, that like working from yourself from home must be so nice. It must be so easy. Like, lucky you. And I am the opposite mindset. I am like, no, it's easier to just go into an office for 40 hours a week and like collect your paycheck. Yeah. Working for yourself is probably the hardest way to make a living, I would say. So if you're not having fun with it, just go get help.
Exactly. Well, and you have to be so disciplined. I think people confuse discipline with motivation. Like, how do I stay
Mhm.
motivated? How do I but like, there are going to be many, many, many days and times and evenings where you don't want to show up, but it's that discipline piece. And it's almost like that fine line between discipline and then not getting burnout too, because I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm super disciplined and I said I'm going to do this and I'm going to follow through. And I've done that with things like, for example, one of my network marketing businesses, like, it didn't feel aligned anymore. But I also grew up in such a culture of like, we don't quit things. And I'm like, I don't want
Mhm.
people to perceive me as being a quitter. So like there's such levels to being an entrepreneur too, that like you don't really think about it until you're in the trenches and doing all of it, that you're like, okay, there's a lot, there's a lot going on that we're trying to juggle and get through.
And I would add to that too, the motivation for sure, but also confidence. I not as much anymore, but I used to get asked a lot, like, "Oh gosh, you just seem so confident. How do you show up so
Yeah.
confidently online?" Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm faking it, to be blunt.
Yeah.
Confident is not one of the words that I would use to describe myself, but I want to make this work. And so
Yeah.
I am disciplined about the fact that, yeah, I kind of hate showing up on Instagram stories 3 or 4
Right.
times a week, but
Yeah.
like that's something I have to do if I want to continue to be able to support myself and my family in this way, and not to be like too much of a tough love person. But if you
Yeah.
just make yourself do it enough time, it's
Mhm.
being scary. And that's how you get, quote, confident.
Yes. Yes. I love that. So do you, when you're working with your clients specifically around branding, does that piece come in as you are helping them with that?
A little bit, yeah. I will first person to say that if you hate your brand, and hate your brand if you feel confused by it, if it just like doesn't fit you anymore, it's going to be hard to show up.
Yeah.
My tagline for quite some time was show up with confidence, book more clients with strategic branding and
Mm.
website design. And
Yeah.
every time that we launch somebody's brand, they all say to me afterwards, gosh, I'm much more confident in promoting my business now. So there is something to be said for that, but there is also something to be said for just taking messy action and doing the
Mhm.
thing. Like you will never become confident by sitting around waiting to be confident.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Now, do you ever have clients who come to you who don't want a website, that they're like, just help me with my brand on social and don't do the website piece? Just curious.
Is your brand feeling a little off? Like your visuals, messaging, and your overall vibe just are not lining up with where your business is headed? You probably don't need another pretty logo. You actually need a solid strategy behind your brand. That's exactly what we'll build together inside the Standout Brand Strategy session, a one on one deep dive into your brand foundation so that you can finally show up with clarity, consistency, and confidence. And if you're thinking about working with Spect & Co. on branding or web design, this is your first step for every single project that we do together. Clients who've gone through this process have tripled their audience size, doubled their revenue, and raised their rates by 30% or more. Use the link in the show notes to book your session, and don't forget to enter code SFBPOD at checkout to save $100. Not so much anymore because typically they already have a website, and that's like
Mm.
the pain point for them. They're like, I
Yeah.
don't like my website, or people are not like understanding how to navigate it or not finding what they need, or
Mm.
it's outdated or whatever.
Yeah.
But occasionally I would encourage those people to have some sort of website. Like it could be
Mhm.
literally one page, but
Yeah.
I think putting all your eggs in the social media basket makes me really
Mhm.
nervous because we have all experienced an Instagram outage
Yeah.
or getting locked out of our Facebook account or whatever. So that's number one. But number two, you're not building any SEO value for yourself by
Right.
having just social media. So even if you just buy the domain of your business and literally put up one page with like your logo and a picture of you and like a contact form, at
Mhm.
least you've like staked your claim on the
Yep.
internet. Like this is my space. I own the domain. If you want to build upon it and like turn it into a whole thing later, great. But if not, nobody else can go grab that. And
Mm.
also, it makes it a lot easier for people to find you if they're like Googling your name or something,
Yep.
which I think is helpful in legitimizing you a little bit.
Yeah.
I am an extra harsh critic, but I won't hire a business that has zero website.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So a lot of my listeners are travel entrepreneurs, as you know, so travel
mhm,
agents, travel advisors, but there are a lot of them who do not have their own website. They might just send out forms to people to get quotes, or they have a host agency that has a website. So it kind of directs, like they can see people's names there, but it's not actually something of their own. And I'm with you. I think everyone should kind of have their own. So I don't really know my question because I'm kind of like baiting you, but what would you tell the person who is nervous about a website, or maybe it just feels like a heavy lift and they're like, I'm not techie, I don't know, especially talking to a travel advisor?
Yeah. So, and this is going to sound like really rich coming from a website designer. No, but my advice to them, honestly, would be that it doesn't have to be that big of a deal. I think when we think, oh, website, people think like that my website needs to be, I don't know what's a good example, but like not the Expedia website, but like the Disneyland website, right? With
Yeah.
like 95 pages and all these interactive things and like really, really complicated. And
Mhm.
it doesn't. You can start with literally a landing page that has like some sort of personal branding, tells people about you, why they should hire you versus all the 85,000 other travel agents that are out there. Something my clients all the time. You'll know that I'm big on like the tough love here. But like you are not the only person on the internet who offers your service. And frankly, you're probably not the best person that offers your service. People are going to hire you because they connect with you for some weird reason. It'd be it's like you guys have the same type of dog, or you both have kids the same age, or you both have traveled to the same places, or you live in the same area, or whatever. People can't make those connections with you if you don't give them those things to connect with. Which you can do a lot on social media, but where do they go after social media? Hopefully it's your website. So that's my advice there is literally start with a single page.
Okay. Now, as someone, because I can just like hear some of the objections coming in and they're like, well, I do trips for Disney and I do cruises and I do all inclusives. Would you still say that's okay to do on a single page? So they have a different page for each, a different form for each of those things? How can we make this simple but effective?
So long term, I think you should have a separate page for each of those things. And the reason I would say that is for SEO purposes, because then you can more narrowly like target keywords and audiences and stuff. But no, there's no reason why you couldn't have just a section that's like my services or the types of trips I plan, whatever, some cute headline. And then just have like 1, 2, 3, all inclusive cruises and like couples retreats or something.
Yeah.
I think that people really overthink the amount of information that needs to be on a website to get started. Most people, my process here too is, so I've taken one trip when I was a kid where my family used a travel planner. It was to Disneyland, actually. And my parents were like both working like 60 hours a week. I was in like 6th grade. So they were running me around to all my activities. Like they were so busy. They're not going to sit down and read miles and miles and miles on a website. They want to know that you look legit, that they feel like they would get along with you and they can trust you, that you're going to get them a good deal on their trip, and that you're going to have some good recommendations. It does not take a 20-page website to do that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I love that. Yeah. Do you use WordPress for your clients, or do you have some?
I do not. WordPress is fine. The reason why I don't use WordPress and why I don't recommend it to my clients is because, like your audience, a lot of them, it's like their first website or they're a smaller business. They're not necessarily newer, but they're just not to a point or don't desire to be ever to a point where they have like a website manager on their team full time. And WordPress really requires a lot of checking in and a lot of maintenance. So I use primarily Squarespace, which I have found to be a lot more user-friendly and simpler. Some people will say, oh, I can't do it with the design with WordPress. Maybe so. Like, I've never found something that I really wanted to do that I couldn't do. So that's my go-to.
Very cool. Yeah, my sister had her website on Squarespace for a while, but then she ended up ultimately switching to Shopify. Because she was just selling multiple things, and it just made more sense to do it that way.
Yeah, for sure. But for a pure service-based business like a travel planner, I think Squarespace is really easy to use. It's fairly inexpensive. It's fast to set up. And the biggest thing is that if you hire a designer to build it for you, it's really easy for you to maintain on your own. So you're not having to come back and pay somebody every time you're like, I want to add a new service or switch a photo. My phone number changed or whatever.
Yeah. That one-time setup is nice.
Yeah.
I used Kajabi for a long time.
I build in Kajabi also, and it is my favorite if you are gonna have a course or host a membership or do anything like that. But if not, I've talked a lot of people out of Kajabi in the last like year, which is funny because I'm like, no, I do love them, but it's just an expensive platform, and if you're not doing anything with digital products, it's not necessary.
Yep, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. So let's talk about lead gen for a minute, because I feel like lead gen and branding are very, very intertwined,
Hmm.
but I think most people do not. And the
I agree with
conversation that
you.
I have
Yeah.
with almost every client is like, okay, so we're going to we're going to do your brand strategy. So we know exactly who we're talking to and like what our positioning is and who your ideal client is and what your competition is doing and all that stuff. And then I'll build you a really killer brand, a really killer website. How are people going to find it?
Yes.
And some of that is SEO, but a lot of it is lead. And I think that that's where people get frustrated because they're like, I just invested thousands and thousands of dollars into this brand project, this website or whatever, and they think it's not working for them. And it's because they're missing the lead gen piece. No matter how great your website is, if you're not sending people there, it
Yep.
can't work for you.
100%.
So what do you have to say about that?
Well, I agree. And it took me a long time to get to where I am at right now in my business and coaching and everything, because I had so many mentors that were basically like, build it and they will come. And I do think maybe that worked in 2018, 2017, when things were not as saturated. But like you mentioned, there are 80,000 other people doing exactly what you were doing, and they might even do it better than you. So how are you going to stand out in the crowd? And the other thing that I noticed was, so, we see all the things. So we're like, okay, it has to be on Instagram. I have to be doing this strategy on Instagram, or podcasting is the way to go, or email is the way to, depending on who you're listening to, like so many people this is the exact one thing that you have to be doing. And I realized when working with my clients that there were different strategies that were working for different people. Like I could tell them one thing and in my mind, this was going to be the one thing, but if they weren't all in on it or their people didn't vibe with it, it wasn't going to work for them. So I created a quiz. So you can take it at lindsaydollinger.com/quiz. And I have lead gen divided into 4 types now. So one type is email marketing, one type is social media. The other one is automation, which I almost put like an asterisk by that one because I don't think we can get straight into the automation without doing some of the other stuff first. And then the fourth one is what I call live events, so activation events. And that's kind of my forte, is where I tend to lead. But I also do think that the best lead generation strategy is a little bit of everything once we can get to that spot, but focusing really on one for at least 3 to 6 months so you can go all in on it, tweak things, modify it, see what works, see what doesn't, and play around with it. And then really start basically figuring out what your funnel is and moving people through that funnel. So, your website is a great place for that, especially if you're going to go into the email marketing side, because we can have an awesome lead magnet and we can capture their leads, and then we can really nurture them through our emails. And at this point, we can have everything like linked. So you can have all your socials linked in all of the places, and you can mention your email list from your podcast. And so it's basically just trying to drive people to as many platforms as we can so that we can shorten that timeline of, I mean, I keep hearing different stats, but it used to only be like people needed to hear your stuff for 7 times before they converted. And the last number I heard was something crazy like 97, like as the minimum, because we have so many things thrown at us. So getting our strategy down for like, okay, I'm going to go all in, like you said, like on Reels or showing up on stories, and Instagram's going to be my main platform. Or like for me, mine's Facebook. And I repurpose some things through different tools. Like one of the tools I use is called SmarterQ onto Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest. But I'm like mainly driving my customers from Facebook. And then on the flip side of that, if I go into like the activation events, I will do a free workshop every month or every other month. And I will promote that on my email. I'll promote it on podcasts. I have different friends and referral partners who promote it as well. Every once in a while, I do ads, but I'm not really big into honestly, I haven't figured them out, to be honest, or I probably would do that much more. But ads would be another great way to drive people into like a live event sort of deal, like a workshop style, and then hopefully convert them over. But like you said, just putting the stuff out there and then not having any strategy on, okay, what are we going to do with it? You're just wasting your money landing flat. It's basically just taking a business card and like throwing it at people and expecting them to like call you and need you.
Just leaving it on the sidewalk and being like, oh, somebody will find it.
Exactly. Like the odds of the right person finding it are so slim.
Yeah. And I came up in the if you build it, they will come era
Mhm.
for sure. And
Yep.
that was like a huge and difficult shift for me and
Yeah.
for a lot of my clients over the last few years when I started my business. So it was like 2016, 2017. I had gotten a new job that I actually had some free time and I made an Upwork profile and like posted on there and got a website job for like three or $400 within like a few days. And
Nice.
then kept getting clients and joined some Facebook groups and got some clients from there. And that like it felt very easy to me. And I
Yep.
absolutely could not give that advice to a new designer starting out now.
No. No. Yep, 100%. And like I hear it a lot with I'm just going to go back to my network marketing example. Network marketing is a good example of unless you get in early or you have a giant community and it's like a newer product. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'll be the first to tell you, I was so successful in one of my companies because of that perfect,
Yeah.
storm of events. So that was one of the things that I still to this day sometimes have network marketing clients come to me and I'm like, I'm just telling you, like, it's not impossible, but it is not the same as it used to be with being able to grow those ranks and get to the top and make that same kind of income that people are talking about making. It's not the same atmosphere.
Yeah. And so where I'm not from, but where I tell people I'm from now is Boise, Idaho, and that's the home of Scentsy. And same thing, I have a local friend who was like the number one Scentsy seller like worldwide. Like she just like crushed it. And
Wow.
I think she would probably say the same thing now that she's like, yeah, I would not recommend you to get into that business to like support your
Yeah.
family. Now, I
Yep.
made a lot of money doing it, but that
Mm.
was the beginning. And like the internet landscape was a lot different now. I've talked
Yeah.
to, I don't know how many more than on my podcast who started out like you in network marketing and then some version of it was a lot harder than I thought. I didn't make as much money
Mm.
as I thought I was going to, but I really loved the marketing part. I really loved
Yeah.
making Canva graphics, or I really loved building a website or writing posts or whatever. And that is what kind of led them into then starting their own
Mhm.
actual business as like a
Yep.
VA or some other service provider. So that is kind of interesting. I feel like it's practice in like putting yourself out there and kind of getting to test which parts of it you like and don't like. So if anyone out there is in a network marketing job that they're like, this is not going how I thought it would, maybe take a minute to consider, okay, but what other skills am I learning that I could monetize
Yeah.
in a different way?
I still say it's a great starting point. It's a great stepping stone. Like I learned so much and I feel like it was a very safe place to do it, because
Mhm.
everyone in your company, or I would say most of the people in your company love being there. They're going to be helpful. They want to see you succeed because they get more money when they see you succeed. So it's great training all around.
Mhm.
And that's actually where I was like, okay, the piece of this business that I really love is coaching the women and helping them build
Mhm.
their businesses. And just like you said, it was just a very natural pivot. Like I'm still an affiliate with a couple companies. And I have a couple friends who um, have in the past, what would it be like maybe year and a half, grown huge businesses with like a telehealth company. So like that's a kind of newer, space
Mhm.
with like GLP-1 shots and things like that. So I don't think it's not doable, but I definitely think it's harder and different than what it was 10 years ago when network marketing was kind of in its peak and, big era.
Yeah, for sure. But definitely a great way to get some practice is the, like, barrier for entry is relatively low, I think. Like,
Hmm.
they give you
Yeah.
a product and they give you training on how to sell it, and they
Mhm.
give you a website, so that part is easy. And back to our point about confidence, it's a great way to get comfortable putting yourself out there and showing up online and
Yeah.
building that confidence muscle, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Is there anything else you'd like to know about lead gen before we wrap up our lead gen section?
I mean, I could talk about lead gen all day. I think the big thing that I feel not like I am personally up against, but that my clients struggle with, or that people who listen to my podcast maybe struggle with, is that lead gen feels like gross and sleazy and disingenuous.
Yeah.
And I agree with everything you said of like, ideally, you'll be doing all of this ecosystem of things for lead gen, but
Mhm.
at first, just choose
Yeah.
one and make it
Yep.
easier on yourself.
Yep.
I think maybe it's just the phrase lead gen. I don't know. I feel like the first thing that comes to my mind is like paying for leads, which I know is not what you're
Mhm.
suggesting.
Yeah.
How can we approach
So
lead gen
interesting.
in a way that does not make us feel gross?
Yeah. So I still to this day, I'll be completely honest, sales is mentally the hardest thing for me to do. Like I can make social media posts, I can write emails, I can do all the things, I can talk to people all day long. When I sit down and I go to the mentality like, okay, now it's time to make money, I automatically hear in my head, like all those things that you were just saying, like, this is icky, this is gross. And then what I have to do is basically walk myself through some mindset shifts. And I'm sure your people have heard them before, like you're serving, you're not selling. If you love your product and you're giving away a ton of value, obviously you deserve to be paid for it. And I do agree with all of that. The thing for me that happened was I almost got to a point where I was getting bitter that I wasn't making sales, but the reason was because I wasn't putting myself out there and people didn't even know that they could buy from me or learn more from me. And I felt like I was kind of like the best kept secret. And I'm like, why are you doing this? You have no problem coaching other people to do this. Like you have to stop being the best kept secret or this is going to be a hobby, a very expensive hobby for the rest of your life. And I think kind of like going back to that tough love, sometimes we just have to give ourselves a little bit of that tough love. Like I know the place that I'm coming from and it is not disingenuous. I am actually serving. I know my stuff. And before you start thinking like, well, someone knows more than me. Yes, that's true. However, you know more than the people you are helping. So remind yourself, what is going to happen if you don't show up? What is going to happen? So I like to think of, a certain client. You can pick any client. What would have happened with them if they had not found me and started working with me? And then you can just like go through this loop. Okay, well, they never maybe would have got their website started. Okay, well, then they might not have found 5 new clients online. Okay, then that would have been, $50,000. Like you can just keep going down. And so then their family wasn't able to take a vacation. So like I go, but like all the way through kind of almost like a reverse why you're doing it and think of someone else that you are helping. And that has always really helped me too. Like that mindset shift on like, okay, this actually isn't gross. This is like what you need to be doing right now.
Yeah. I love that, like reverse engineering the why. I think that's so smart. I also think too that all of my audience, and I can make a pretty safe assumption that all of yours are like people who lead their business with integrity. And I think that the only reason why you would ever need to feel sleazy or salesy or disingenuous or whatever is if you're not going to deliver on the thing that you're selling them. Just don't do that. I am also big on your website and your social media and your overall brand, like visuals and messaging and whatever, should be doing a majority of the selling for you. So when someone does get on a sales call, you're not like hard selling them. It's legitimately just a two-way conversation of, okay, if we work together, how would this work? Is this a good idea? What do the logistics look like? What's the investment? And just kind of feeling each other out from both ends. Because sometimes I'll be on a sales call and say, you know what, I don't actually think that I'm the person to help you. And that I feel like legitimizes me even more because I'm not just like any client that is willing to give me their money.
I love that. That is so good. And I feel like that's such a nice way to wrap all this up too. So if you're listening to this, you need to get your website together. We need to get our lead gen working for you. But like you mentioned, it's almost like that ecosystem of all these pieces. And if you're listening to this now, we don't want to overwhelm you. Like, okay, we got to revamp it all. Like we got to do all that. But pick one thing. Maybe it's your branding first. Maybe if your branding is already completed, then it's time for the website. It's time for the email, like pick the one thing to focus on the next 90 days. And then we add the other thing in after that to really help this. I don't even know what I want to call it. Like your suite of tools. I don't know. Like all of this really work for you, right? To grow the business that you really love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also like you run the business, so you get to pick and choose. If you don't want to market your business doing email, you don't want to show up on Instagram, or you don't want to have a podcast or whatever, don't. Like,
do it.
There's no reason why you have to do stuff that you hate. So pick the things that you enjoy and you're excited about and work on that next.
I love it. All right, Morgan, where can everyone connect with you and work with you?
Yeah. So I am on Instagram and Threads at specdan.co. The link will be in the show notes. I also have a brand audit, which is a like ChatGPT powered brand audit. So if somebody's listening and thinking, I have no idea where to start, you can literally ask you a handful of questions. I always tell people to voice note their answers. People don't realize that you can send a voice note to ChatGPT and just a work comment, and it will score of like 1 through 5 of where you're at on all these different sections of your brand. And then it will tell you what to focus on next for the next 90 days. That's a great point if you're thinking, okay, my stuff's a mess and I don't know what to do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to do that
How
when we
about
get
for
off.
you? Yeah, I do, Lindsay.
Yeah, so you can take the quiz that I mentioned, lindsayDollinger.com/quiz. And then I am Lindsay Dollinger all over the places. Instagram, like I said, I mainly hang out over though on Facebook and TikTok. Actually, I've been getting into TikTok the past few months. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Lindsay Dollinger. I think I'm the only one. So you can't miss me if you look for me on all the platforms.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much for chatting. It was fun. And I think both of our audiences are going to love it. So Lindsay's
Yeah.
audience, come listen to my podcast. My audience, go listen to Lindsay's podcast, and we will all get more leads, have better plans.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Thanks so much, Morgan.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.